Welcome back to Zennie62. It's Joseph, cordially responding to Zennie from Zennie62. He gave some commentary on my two videos and wanted me to follow up with my thoughts on what he said with regards to Loki being an evil character. I will concede that in the comic book lore, Loki is supposed to be the epitome of evil to a certain degree. We know that he was considered a villain in beginning phase 1 of the Marvel saga. And it is true that Loki that we've come to watch in the Loki series is a subset of the Lokis that are potentially out there in the multiverse. This particular Loki has resigned himself to basically come out and say that he's not as evil as anyone thought he was. This is a Loki that's taking stock of himself, and there's a psychological display here with regards to the Loki that we're watching in the Loki series. And I think that's clever to do this because it gives him depth, it gives him a soul, and provides him to be maybe an anti-hero moving forward in the Marvel Universe. So that was an interesting take with this Loki series, is that, as I mentioned before, it's the humanization of a villain. Now, the Lokis that are out there are still doing mischief. As Loki said, he's the god of mischief. But this one has taken stock with himself, especially in episode 1, if you recall, that he's looking at his potential timeline and some of the havoc that he's had in the Marvel Universe or in the universe that he's familiar with. And so I would say that Loki is a villain and is considered to be evil, but this amalgamation of Loki that we see now is quite the opposite that we're discovering. Now, the fact that he's still mischievous, obviously so. He's still trying to seem to come up on a way to get out of his situation with the Time Variance Authority. And having said that, one of the things I did want to point out that Zennie brought up was the fact that he's starting to use his magic. And if you recall, earlier in episode 2, he asked Owen Wilson when they decide that, along with Tom Hiddleston as well as the Time Variance Authority guards, they're going to go hunting for this Loki variant. He asked him, well, can I have a weapon? No. Can I have my magic back? No. And so that leads you to the question was, how powerful is the Time Variance Authority? Because we see Loki in a few different scenes utilize his magic. One of them coming out when they're in the Roxcart parking lot and they're drenched. Once they go into the store, Loki kind of shakes it off and this green glow comes over him and automatically dries him off. And as Zennie pointed out, when he reaches over to grab that canister, you know, you see him utilize his magic to basically, you know, move that canister to his hand to hit one of the host bodies that was attacking him. And so that leads to the question, I thought he wasn't allowed to use any powers and he was removed from any abilities that he had, magical abilities, power abilities. And so that leads to the question, what's really going on here? And is it one of those things that people have talked about? Is it kind of a Wizard of Oz thing that it's an impression of power where there isn't none? Who's hiding behind the curtain? So as we know that the timekeepers are talked about, but are they necessarily three-bodied timekeepers that run the universe, or is that the idea behind the Time Variance Authority so that it is not a thing to question. So keep it here on Zennie62, and we'll further the discussion with Zennie and other vloggers. And don't forget to like and subscribe.